You don't get to choose to not pay a price. You only get to choose which price you pay.
It's not our job to figure out the how, right? It's our job to figure out the why. To take ownership or responsibility is to you to completely forfeit your right to blame.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of our series Discovering Purpose. Today I'm joined by my good friend Matt Lee. Matt Lee is the founder of Allergic to Average. He's a motivational speaker, mindset coach. He does a lot of things, and I don't want to take anything away from you, so
Gotcha.
Tell me a little bit.
Yeah, so Matt Lee, I'm a father, a husband primarily, and outside of that, it's kind of evolved into more of the entrepreneurship route. And so different industries, different businesses have been a part of my journey and figuring out a lot of the purpose talk. And so across from Monument Company, helping across with a moving company, food truck, again, motivational speaking, Allergic to Average, I DJ. And a lot of this is just, these are ways that I found that have helped me to kind of serve in a way that brings out purpose. We can talk about that a lot more. But within all that, it's a lot more focused on what is the mentality, what is the actual thought process of a person and how much that impacts us, no matter what it is you're doing. So that's what's kind of gotten me involved in so much. But primarily, how do we kind of dissect the thoughts and the beliefs behind, whether it's a business, relationship, or just anything you do in life. And so anyways, that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to continue to talk about this today.
Nice, man. I thought this would be a perfect spot for you because today we're talking about the clues are in your story.
Right.
So we're really digging into identifying the patterns, the passions, and looking into the patterns in your life that hold the clues for your purpose. Because sometimes they're annoying, sometimes they are frustrating.
Yep.
But learning to switch those, which I just want to briefly say, you helped me a lot with that. You've been that mentor for me, breaking a lot of those mindsets. So I'm really appreciative of you for that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm just grateful that you're doing this with me.
Yes.
If you're wondering where Jeremy is, really quick, he actually got involved in a really bad four-wheeling accident. He's recovering okay. He, for lack of a better word, he just broke his face. So,
and this one's for you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
This one's an honor for you today. Okay?
Yes, sir. I need my people to stop breaking their faces.
Right.
But so let's get into it. The clues are in your story. So the first part, we want to talk about your story has meaning, even the broken parts. So just right off the bat, I want to ask you, what's something you see going on in today's culture when it comes to mindset? Can we even just break down what mindset means? Because I think there's some people that don't even know what mindset is.
True, yeah. And so I feel like, just for starters, there's something that really I feel like opens up in your way of being. It's really a law, much like gravity, right? The law of being, which is your highest thoughts, your highest emotions, feelings, beliefs, to the core of who you are, where that's at. Not what you think you want or what you are pushing or maybe motivating yourself for, but who you truly are to the core. A lot of people can project, or they seem like a very positive or happy person, but to the core, they're scared. They're terrified. They want abundance, but the core of who they are is still tied into lack and that they're not good enough, this and that. So mindset, though, goes back to right thinking, right thought, the power of tapping into what do I truly believe, and from those beliefs, they produce thoughts every single day, right? And so for you to get intentional about mindset, what is mindset? It's really an intentional practice and process of aligning your thoughts to truth versus fear. And so in our world, like what you said, what's a common thing? You look into spirituality, you look into the message of, Jesus Christ and God the Father, if you look at even the message that Buddha brought or Gandhi, or these were all understandings that the pattern and the way that like the energy of the world around us is completely 180 from the kingdom of heaven. And so a lot of our thought processes within our culture today, our world is embedded in fear. That's what drives sales. That's what drives, people to continue to feel like this is what I need next, right? So you're constantly hearing from billboards to ads to, stuff on social media. It's always trying to sell you on what you're missing, what's not good enough about you right now, or what would make you better.
Yeah.
The kingdom message, the understanding of purpose, where you've been created from and who you are, is completely different than that. It's completely 180. And so most people come into our world, majority of people come into our world, and they feel like they have to find and really fight for purpose, confidence within their mind, right? So mindset, I'm saying a long answer here, but mindset is you going back to you are responsible and you're taking ownership for aligning yourself in truth versus fear. So the world embedded with fear.
So it's basically just like taking accountability for your own thought processes, because really you act in accordance to how you believe.
Right.
And there's a lot of, that was something big that like you helped me out with, was shifting a lot of those mindsets. Really the accountability piece too. I think that's the biggest piece.
Yep.
So why is it so hard for people to confront or take accountability?
I think so much of it is like, it's literally just that. It's to take ownership or responsibility over something is to you to completely forfeit your right to blame.
Oof. Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to give up, because it's so much easier to blame your upbringing, your parents, your spouse, your kids, your neighborhood. And if we can do that defers us from having to step into a new way of showing up or making another decision, or maybe admitting I was wrong, right? And most people, we just don't like to do that because it does something to our ego, right? And so it's a lot easier. And the average person, when we talk about allergic to average, what the average does, the common does versus the intentional, the allergic to average is you take full responsibility for where your life is at, and where your life is going at the same time. And it's hard to do that, because when you start to realize that it is nobody else's fault, it is nobody else's responsibility to put me where I am today and to put me where I want to go tomorrow, that's up to me. Most people hear that as scary and terrifying because ego, but it's actually really freeing.
Yeah.
Because you're no longer putting your purpose, your passion, your gift to the world on somebody else or why you can't do it. You're actually liberated when you take ownership and say, it's with me. It's for me. I got this. My God is going to show me. He's going to teach me. He's going to take me. And so you get out of this blame, right? And you get into ownership, responsibility. And that's the most, again, liberating thing for us, that not only as individuals, but as a collective.
Right.
Because our world is like so saturated with help me. I need your help. Like everybody wants, and so anyways, I think that's why it's so difficult, because we get programmed and taught to blame, to push, to defer, to give it to him. No, it was their fault. It was, and I'll say this and we can go to the next thing, but what happened to you, what was done to you when you were younger, what you were taught, right or wrong, that wasn't your fault, right?
Right.
But who you are today and with what you know and how you're moving forward, it's always your responsibility to deal with the trauma, the pain, the hurt. And it's a lot easier to put light and emphasis on somebody else's pain, dark trauma than it is our own.
Yeah.
So
a visual like I always think of is, there's the quote, you can't choose the cards you were dealt. It's just up to you how you play the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me, like I was unhappy with the cards I was dealt. And I wanted new cards. I wanted a new hand, but that's not.
Most people do.
Yeah.
And they'll spend their whole life trying to bargain or trade or pretend that they have this other pair when it's not even there. Mm-hmm. Instead of sitting at the table and going through losing some games, this and that, but learning how to, and I feel like that's truly the gift. I mean, some of us, we come out and that hand we're dealt, and it had nothing to do with us. It was the responsibility and ownership of the people before us that we got to benefit. Some, because of their lack of responsibility ownership, we came in and we had to experience that. But no matter where it's at, we have, through ownership responsibility, the ability and responsibility to upgrade your hand. Learn how to play your hand. Learn how to get confident with your hand. And also learn how to make trades, take losses that get you closer to wins. But most people, like, again, they just think, if I had that guy's hand, I would be so much further. Yeah. Or the day that hand hits my hands, I'll be good. Instead of, realizing you have the ability to go create a new hand, to show up and trade and play enough so that you get an upgrade. And it's through the process of doing that. It doesn't just happen. It actually unfolds, right?
Yeah. And I think for me too, like especially getting started on this journey, it was a lot more folding and a lot more surrender.
Yeah.
And it challenged my ego.
Yep.
Because I was wrong, and that sucked sitting with for a long time. Just realizing how wrong my perspective of even just the world was, how I interacted with people. But by folding those hands and upgrading my hand, now I feel more confident to play the game.
Right.
So when we talk about this stuff, I feel like it's also tagged along with, we talk about this and there's a lot of struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what loses a lot of people, is because they're like, well, I hear these guys talking about, upgrading their hand, improving their mindset, and it's tough and it's surrender and there's suffering involved maybe. Why would I do that?
Right.
So like, what would you tell somebody to encourage them? Like, the pursuit of upgrading your hand is worth it.
I mean, I have the belief that from a higher intelligence, from the creator that we came from, whoever, anybody can believe that is, but the reality is, like, I think that's what life really came down to is, through your process, you learn all these things that we want. You learn confidence by going through very uncomfortable times. You learn resilience by going through broken, shattered moments in your life. You go through seasons where you're broken, maybe through trauma. Maybe it was somebody hurt you in the past. They rejected you. They did you wrong. We all experience that. But there's a process of, like, I think it's so crazy that when something gets broken on the body, like a bone, that it actually comes back and it's stronger later through that brokenness. So it's like understanding that what sounds like going through suffering and brokenness seems like a loss. Like, why would I do that? Why would I go down? But it's like when you understand, like, Jesus going to the wilderness and secluding himself, not just to be by himself and be lonely. There was an exchange of, I'm going to give something so that I can receive something. And out of that, it left him at a higher, stronger, stance in his position and his perspectives of what is actually real and true. And so
I think that's the biggest piece too. What's real and true.
Right. What is actually true? Yeah. What is actually real and true? Not what am I believing is true. And so to go through the process of sometimes the struggle, the pain, the messiness, the reason it's worth it is because that's literally what brings us into clarity. That there's two types of ways that we experience, the way things should be. We get it and we see it in the right example, or we see it in the wrong example. Yeah. Now that's our parents' upbringing. That's our past relationships. That's friendships. That's, anytime you took a risk to do something and it didn't work out, but it always leaves us with a little bit more clarity at the end.
Yeah.
So if I did something, I didn't like it, or I bombed it. I remember one of my first speeches ever. I was just like, why do I want to talk to people? Why am I putting myself in this position? But what it did was it made me more clear on what I need to do the next time, or what I shouldn't do the next time.
I want to delete the first 5 episodes of the podcast.
Right.
I look at them and it's like, why did I think that was a good idea? But
if you don't do that, if you don't at least give yourself the permission and freedom to take the risk and, to be bad at times, we always start out bad at something. And, you don't go through the bad season. Everybody wants to get to the badass, right? I want to be badass in this. But if you don't go through the bad and learn through, the reps and through the failures, you can never get to badass. You'll just always be stuck at bad. I'm just bad.
If you're not willing to be the fool, you can't be the master.
Yes, that same exact concept right there is understanding. It's through the being and the doing that sets you apart.
That's so good.
It's not we all think it's the having and then the doing. Then this is what gets the world to see me as somebody different, somebody that's important. But no, it's the most powerful people are the ones that are being, like, they carry a sense of, I am love. I am created with purpose. I got a story. And it may not be for the whole world, right? But they understand, and they're being love. They're being a solution. They're being contrast to people and help, and they're doing that too. There's a clear difference. And we know the difference too. When we see it, people often can say, this is who I am. This is who I am. And then they do something way different, or they're doing something versus who they're being. Is like, it's an alignment, right? And so the only way to really get into that alignment for us is to go through this process of struggle, to go through this process of really dissecting our heart and our mind to see what is true, what is real, what do I need to let go of and abandon, and what do I need to actually invite and surrender into. Yeah. And so that's a part of, changing up your hand. When we talk about spirituality, now we're talking about, you don't only get to upgrade your hand, this and that. You now know the house dealer who controls the game, who runs the game, right?
And we all like those dealers that tell you, like, hey,
no, fold. All right. And it's so funny because when you have a good one, like a guy that's actually about, and that's our God to us. He knows what hand we have, and he's a part of you winning just as much as you want to be a part of that winning.
Yeah, he wants you to win.
But that's the surrender part, though. Yes. Right now, it's again our responsibility to upgrade, to play, to learn, to study. But then at certain points, when there's no way I'm going to win by myself, you surrender it to the table and you say, hey, okay, teach me the next game. Yeah. Show me the next hand. Okay, let's go again. And so these are game changers. But again, the common mindset within our world operating is completely 180 from what the truth and who we've been designed to be. And a part of that is going through, like, I can't speak on, like, I know his specific story, but if you look at, like, even the Buddha, a lot of his stuff was because of him watching the suffering of other people that got him to step up into enlightenment, right? Jesus Christ looking at the Pharisees and how this religion was getting used to bind people more than it was to free people, seeing that pain, seeing that struggle, right? Going through his ministry, enlightening Martin Luther King, to see how people were getting discriminated and mistreated and the equality, it drove him to step up and to get clarity where he once didn't have that. And so that pain and that struggle and that, dude, I know it. I mean, and anybody who's ever taken the time to try to upgrade themselves and to try to be one with thyself is going to know that kind of struggle and patience. But that's the exchange, I feel like, to continue to tap into the greatness you were designed for. Yeah. Right? That's the exchange. That's what it takes is you surrendering, giving, relying, and then you're allowing that to be poured back into you. And at the end of the day, I think that's just part of the process, but that's what makes it so hard to play.
Yeah.
Because that's what it takes to play.
That's good. So digging in a little more, can we talk about looking at parts of your story that maybe didn't make sense at the time and looking at it, maybe it was preparing you for your purpose and it wasn't so much an obstacle? I'll share a brief story real quick. Actually, how you challenged me through some of my frustrations of where I was at that time. But when I first started social media management and content creation and all that, social media is a beast. And it changes all the time, and algorithms, and nobody really knows what. And I can't even give you the definition of that algorithm. Right. But there was a time whenever I was starting to try to help you with yours, and I was doing it for everybody else, and I just felt like nothing was taking off, like views were inconsistent, and I wanted to give it up. And you had a meeting for Allergic to Average with a couple of your members of your team, and I walked into that meeting literally planning to tell y'all I was stepping back from social media management.
Yeah, I remember this.
And then, so I was sitting there quiet and y'all were talking, and then you looked at me and you were like, Q, how does that work? And I was like,
Right.
And then Jess asked something else, and I was like, oh, it's just this. And then you asked something, and long story short, like 10 minutes of me speaking and to giving you answers and hearing myself talk about how knowledgeable, and it's not even that I was an expert,
Right.
but I had the fundamentals down.
Right.
And
so you were an expert to us in that because we didn't even know the fundamentals.
But I didn't look at myself as an
right.
I thought I sucked.
Right.
You know? So like leaving that conversation and realizing like how much I actually knew pushed me to where I'm at now. And now like I can't imagine doing anything else, you know?
Yeah.
So that's just a moment where I turned that frustration and ready to give up into now what is putting food on the table for my family, and that's what's providing, you know? So that's just a quick story. That's a shallow way that you helped me, but I think that's the most, anyway.
Yeah.
So like turning the question back to you, have you ever had a part of your story that didn't make sense at the time, but looking back, it was preparing you for your purpose?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's been, I think more times than not, and that still happens. There's stuff that I'm doing right now or I'm, still building. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it fully makes sense, but, I might butcher up how it's said, but I've always remembered too, and it's been something I've experienced. And Steve Jobs had a quote like, the dots will never make sense looking forward, but it's always at moments when you're able to stop, look back, that you see it. Wow, that's why I needed to do this, or I needed to go away and do this for a little while, or this is why I had that passion to start that thing, even though it didn't make sense. But
I heard that it's the irony of life is it makes sense in reverse, but not going forward.
yes,
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly. So many things are, again, and this is why I'm so, I guess just obsessed with the spirituality sense and that there's a higher intelligence that is constantly working for us even more so, I should say, there's even times where we don't even want that, but that's just how good that higher intelligence that God is to us, and then there's other times where we actually partner with that, and we actually allow ourselves to be submitted under something that's greater than us, a will, a cause, a love. And I think when we do that, the universe is constantly giving us opportunities of being able to build yourself up, whether it be in any area, socially, mentally, physically, financially. And so I would say, man, probably 8 out of 10 times in the past moving forward, when it was something big, it really was something that I didn't understand. I was 17. Here's a quick example. I mean, like around 16, 17, I was at a local church, small little church. And then by 17, they had me speaking as like the youth director at 17. Right. And so I'm looking around, on Wednesdays, and I'm the one speaking. And I think I was even like leading worship at the time. So I'm like leading worship, and then I'm like going to speak, and like majority of these people are my age. And it didn't make sense to me, right? But then you fast forward, I had no idea that I would be like a professional motivational speaker. I had no idea that the message or having a message and sharing it would be something that wasn't just for that season, but it was preparing me for something that now, 15 years later, I'm doing professionally. Like,
right.
And if the Lord would have told me you're going to be doing this one day professionally, I would have argued. I would have fought. I would have been like, no, I'm not. Public speaking is very difficult, and it's not something that I grew up or looked in the mirror one day and was like, you're going to be on stage just speaking. Yeah. It's actually been something I fought the entire time before an invitation to, go speak here and share the Allergic to Average message led to this. And then I mean, fast forward, and that became a way. I mean, that's still a way that I take care of my family, and all these things, though, along that have been prepping and preparing me for speaking, sharing a message with the world, enlightening minds and hearts, right? Like elevating the thought process of somebody, which was something that I couldn't have thought it out, right?
Right. So when you were fighting it, because it had momentum and it was kind of like probably driving itself, right?
Right.
Like it was pushing, like God was pushing you towards that and you were fighting it. So like what was that internal dialogue like? Like why did you feel like you didn't want to, or you feel like you didn't deserve to have a platform? I don't know, but like
it's the common one, I feel like, for most people, which is that belief that who am I, imposter syndrome, like who am I? Why would people listen to me? Or do I really have something to say? Like you start, no matter what you put I mean, it could just be applying to go work at McDonald's, right? Nothing wrong with that. But like, if that was your first job, I mean, not a highly stressful, high paying job, but you could still get in your own way as a young person saying, well, what if they don't hire me? Or what if I ain't good enough to do this? I mean, so any position you step into, it's going to constantly get you to come back and actually recommit somewhere, right? And so for me, like, I had to recommit that this wasn't just about Matt Lee. Like when I spoke, a lot of the problem wasn't even that, I wasn't a good enough speaker. It was me. It was me liberating this idea that wasn't a part of who I am, and that I actually needed to let that belief go, and that because maybe that wasn't somebody that I identified as a part of me, or that I'm in my mind not good enough. That's actually, again, not true. That's not real.
yeah.
And the evidence of life was like, bro, you're getting invitations to go speak. You're getting paychecks to go speak. You're getting people telling you that your message matters to them. But here you are in your head, you're not good enough. You're gonna find out you're a fraud.
Yeah.
Who are you to think people really are going to be changed by what you have? So for me, getting out of my way, my mind, and getting into the alignment of what is a higher truth, what is something that's actually speaking to why this has been happening. I can argue all day up here, but I can't argue the actual evidence of what's going on. And so anyways, that goes back to just the power of our brain. Like, you're always going to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's very important on what are you looking for? Are you looking for the reasons why you're not good enough? Because you're going to find it. You're not good enough. Remember? Oh, look, that's evidence. Or you start tapping in and having the faith to say, no, I've been created to do something. I've been created to bless people. And then you start to look around and see the actual evidence of, look at that favor. Look at how that played out. Look at how much you've been a blessing to this person. And so it's a process, but it's that process to purpose, and it unfolds.
Well, and ultimately realizing like you do have something to offer the world, and you telling yourself you're not good enough and not acting on that is depriving the world of what you have to offer. And ultimately, for me, I feel like I realized I did have something to offer the world, and it may not be like have the biggest YouTube channel. It may not be
you're famous.
Yeah.
I know.
But me telling myself I wasn't good enough and me holding myself back was depriving the world of what I had to offer it. Right?
Yep.
And I think that's and I think that's kind of where that ties in too, because I feel like we're trained to look externally for purpose and not internally. Like,
right. How
do you serve the world versus what do you offer the world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's going to be common. And that's why going a lot of the theme too of knowing purpose and following these things is, this idea of know thyself. Most people don't even, they can be grown ass adults and they still don't actually know what they want or what's actually terrifying them, or because it's scary for people to spend time with themselves. Like that's another 180 thought of this world versus how we were designed to be, and I think about our culture today, if you think back, thousands of years ago and how slow paced the world was, a day, now, we have so much constant things going on. I mean, and just the phone alone, right? So it makes it hard to know you.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to be distracted on everything else that's going on. And it's a lot easier to look outward than it is to look inward, because that takes, again, intentionality, that takes honesty, that takes transparency with yourself, that takes surrendering. And so
do you feel like that it's the convenience of our necessities? Like, so when I say that, like, it's very convenient. Like, we can just go pour water right now. We can go take a shower. We can go across the street and go get food. Like, everything's so convenient that I feel like we almost got addicted to the convenience, that it's hard to, because obviously convenience is comfortable.
right.
And I think being addicted to the convenience pushes us to to confront ourselves. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, and it feels like an inconvenience to work on yourself, because it takes time, and it takes, in a sense, a sacrifice. It's a good one. It's a beautiful one, but it requires you to one, cut out that time, and then two, to commit to being present in that time. And then three, like, you are also, anytime you like meditate, you pray, you talk to a mentor, you're still going in with this faith that this investment right now is going to be worth the exchange of what comes out on the other side. This prayer time right now, this meditational moment is going to make me better when I walk away from it.
Yeah.
But that's not a guarantee, right? So it almost feels like, oh, I'm good without it. And then that becomes a habit. I'm good without it. I'm good with it. Because it's much easier to throw on a podcast where somebody's teaching you versus maybe it's hopping your word and you learn for yourself with Holy Spirit. It's a lot easier to have somebody tell you what strategy and what to do, which is great. But sometimes we need there's not a strategy for what you're doing. You need to go figure it out, right? And so, again, the reason why I say that is because the more that you can learn thyself, the more you know about you, your passions, what ignites you, what frustrates you, what pisses you off about our world and what's going on in it. That becomes, again, a clarifying wave that allows you to partner with, and then allows you to continue to see, is this a distraction? Like, whatever this pattern that keeps, is this a distraction, or is this actually something that I need to kind of surrender into and partner with more?
Yeah.
And it could look both ways, because maybe it is part of your passion and your purpose, but it's frustrating to you because you're not good at it, whatever this thing is. You don't understand why you're doing this, but you just have this. And the more that I feel like you stay committed to something like that, like, it fits more in the lane of giving, serving, the will of a higher, God. It serves more in that category versus this is just something I want to do. It's just something that, and so I think the only way that we know that though more is by knowing, most people don't know what is like their spiritual vision. What is your gift to the world? And again, that's not a famous, I'm rich, everybody knows me. Like, your gift could be to one person in this world that doesn't sound like, some people might hear that and be like, I'm just going to help one person.
It's not big enough.
Right. That's not big enough. But then if you were to say, well, you're meant to be famous and you're meant to, people love the idea, but the process behind carrying that weight or carrying that pressure, and especially when you don't know yourself, it'll only break you.
Yes.
It'll only crumble you. But we sleep on the importance of a beautiful mom or a father that raised golden children to be the best that they could. We sleep on the fact of the power of a good teacher in a school and how much she transitioned somebody's way of thinking and life one day. That boss. We play roles, and every life is an experience and an invitation into either love or fear, depending on where that person stands and where they're rooted, right? And so we see the greed, we see the jealousy. We had that boss before that was, very controlling. But we also have this exchange and experience with humans that are loving, that are blessings, that are not aligned to their own ego, but something bigger. And anytime you see that, that was never on accident. Anytime you see people like that, right? And so it cost them something. They had to exchange. They had to be intentional. So that becomes why it's like worth it, why it's something that must be done on an individual level for each one of us, because without it, you're just another average person. You will be. That's the default, right? Yeah. So if you don't get out of default into design, your life will always be a defaulted life. It'll all be off reaction. It'll all be off of, just continuing to go with everybody else is picking out your life and what you do and what your purpose is. But when you become somebody that I'm going to design this life that I've been given, starting with my beliefs, starting with my thought. And so that becomes the game changer.
Well, and I think that's one of my favorite talking points of yours is you were created to create.
Right.
Like we are all created. We're creating even just I don't want to steal your thunder, but like the home environment that you live in, you have a role in creating that. The relationships you have a role in, you are constantly creating.
Right.
Whether it doesn't have to be a podcast, it doesn't have to be it's literally, it could be, you could start off small with creating that.
Yeah.
When you begin to take accountability of what you're creating, now there's intention behind it. Now there's purpose behind it. And then, because the pathway is never fully revealed to you, it starts by taking the first step and then the next step. And I think that's like the hardest thing. One of the hardest things I had to get over was because everybody wants to see the end goal. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to see where you're going to end up. But that's not how it works.
No.
It's one step at a time through the forest of, finding your way through. And it slowly gets revealed to you.
Right. And I think, there's Marianne Williamson. She talks about, in a sense from A Course in Miracles, but it's this idea that like the life you have today is the life you're ever going to have. Like that's it. So if you're not happy today, right? If you're not finding ways to find the joy and the gift in this present moment, you may never, because life is what it's going to be. And it's that today.
Yeah.
And so it's not about materialistic things or, again, I have a hand that I can finally play when I'm 40 and then I'll be happy. It's how are you finding the joy, the purpose, the actual gift of today? Because when you can do that, every day starts to become more and more a part in alignment of joy, purpose, understanding. And it's not something that it's contingent on when this happens. It's like I've decided and now it's happening. It's going to continue to happen, right? And so, like you were saying earlier, we are programmed to believe that in this three-dimensional world that we live in, the things that we have attaches value to us versus what you have inside makes you the value of who you are. We don't understand that. So we chase, I want to wear this. I want to look like this. I need to have this. I want to go to these places because if I'm not, I'm just another ordinary person. When in fact, we were designed to start with understanding from already your design and what you cultivate and carry within you makes you an extraordinary person. Yeah. That's going back to that understanding of, I always talk about instead of looking to get to something, what does it look like to work from that something, right? Like, so for rest is one of those. A lot of people think if I just keep busting my ass, if I just keep grinding, keep going, one day I'll rest. And that's something I fell for too for a while. But what happens when you stop working to get to rest and you start working from rest? That's a completely different way to approach, right?
Well, that's like the statistic that shows most people die within 5 years after retiring. I look at that and say, like, I wonder if that is because they spent their whole life in their careers, waking up every day, confronting the world, confronting the problems at work. And as soon as you retire, it's like, oh, now I can rest and travel the world. But then it's like, you're not contending with anything anymore.
Right.
You're not being challenged every day. And it's like, I wonder how much of that is attributed to suddenly you don't have any purpose anymore. Suddenly you don't have anything going on. So like, what's the point? Like
Right.
we weren't created to sleep all day. We weren't created to take it easy. We were created to confront the world, and
Right.
confront the darkness of it, the pain of it, the struggle of it, and to keep going, because ultimately that's what tells the best story.
Yep.
There's not a good story that is mediocre and it's like, oh, everything just was paved beautifully in front of them and it worked out. No, it's always adversity.
Right.
And so again, I just wonder how much the lack of adversity contributes to that statistic of people passing away within 5 years after retiring, you know?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like Miles Monroe talks about, you know, even within work for us as human beings, like to work is to become. And whatever that work is, it doesn't necessarily mean like you're pouring concrete, you know, changing out roofs. Like, I mean, working in the office, working an issue out with a person, working on your yard, you know, the skill level, the adapting, the problem solving, from mowing my grass to helping fix a corporate issue. Work helps us to become, because again, out of that struggle, out of that sweat, out of that exchange of putting your hands and your feet to something and tackling a problem, that exchange of doing that gives you something that allows you to become more clear, that helps you to become another person, that helps you to build another skill set that maybe you didn't have before. And then even in the smallest ways, you walk away with some more confidence out of that problem or that work day, that work season. And so the average person, we don't like to work, right? But work has been a part of helping us to find clarity, to find purpose. I mean, we were created to create. And when we're not taking the position as creator in life, you're still creating, but you're not doing it with intentional, on purpose, for purpose, with purpose. So you're creating unintentional things that typically, when that's the way that they are created unintentionally, we see that as chaos. We see that as problems in our world, right? It wasn't something with a greater purpose behind it. It wasn't something that with purpose, for purpose, on purpose, it got created. So now it's a problem. It was who created this problem? Who created this panic? Who created? And so each one of us as individuals gets the ability, because that's who we were created to be, to choose to be a creator in life, right? With intentional purpose, plan, and positioning. And as we do that, the universe starts to partner with that, because we don't see ourselves as I'm a lacking being. I'm only an ordinary, just human. I'm average, you know, because the world will give back. The universe gives back to you what you believe you are. Mm-hmm. So I want abundance. But at the core, I feel like I lack. I feel like, who am I to ever be rich or wealthy? Like who? So I can proclaim it, and I can affirmation it all day. But if I actually have a belief system, the world will always give you back.
Yeah.
Which you're actually vibrating and reflecting out, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to know. It's hard unless you spend time with yourself to see why are you scared?
Yeah.
Why are you hurt? Why are you sometimes terrified? What is this? It's a lot easier to numb that. It's a lot easier to distract yourself from that than to sit with it and to actually make a decision with it. And so, more and more, I think that's what it's just the invitation into purpose and the greatness that you were meant to bring to this world, whatever it looks like. And so it's going to take work, but it's not, I don't know. I think we get so scared on what the work could be, right? We're afraid of the work. We're afraid that, what if I do all this work and nothing? And that's rooted in fear. But love knows that any work that I put, it's an investment for me, for others, right?
So I'm going to kind of reach for a little bit and try to connect these two thoughts. But there's a book by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And he talks about how when we have ideas, so he calls it antenna. Like every human has these antenna that is connected to the universe. And when you have an idea of something, so like the podcast for me, like when I had this idea, that was the universe telling me that the world was ready for this idea to come to fruition. But if I don't act on it, it's just going to pass on to somebody else. And because it's time for that idea to arise.
Right.
And so I feel like if you're usually like if you're hurt by something, or you talked about it earlier, like there's something that you see in the world that just aggravates you to your core, that could be a sign to what you're supposed to offer the world. You're supposed to offer that solution.
Right.
So how do you begin to look at these frustrations or distractions, and how do you determine the difference between, like, is it just something that ticked you off, or is it actually part of something of your purpose?
Yeah, I mean, the only way that I think that's truly possible is it goes back to like the relationship with the divine. I mean, a lot of times I feel like the things that bug me the most or irritate me are things that are actually it's actually breaking a law or breaking a command of the higher love that we've been invited into. And so when we look at like what love is, for me, what love is, kindness, all these things, and how much that actually changes our world, and that it's actually an option, it's available, and it's aligned to something that's bigger than myself. So when I see some lack of that, or somebody breaking my belief of the golden rule, kindness, treating others with, respect, this and that, then it allows me to see again and get more clear on one, which is the most important. How do I decide to show up? How am I going to show up? Right. Because a lot of times if I've seen maybe it's a group of people or an individual person, and maybe they're just like, I don't know, disrespectful, violent, a lot of things that aggravate me the most is, men mistreating women in a violent way. Maybe it's a verbal way, or especially men mistreating kids, sexually, taking their innocence, beating them. So if I see these things, I mean, it might actually cause me to get violent. I'm okay with that. But so much of that is me realizing that, I'm going to just add this and you can cut this but there's certain things that would bug me to the point of I would probably murder this person if I ever witnessed somebody. I walked in and somehow witnessed somebody getting raped, somebody getting violated. That's enough for me to right? But I'm okay with that in a sense that I realize that doesn't just come from the standard of Matt Lee. That comes from something I've surrendered into, I've bought into, I believe in, and I'm going to carry where I go. And I'm also going to illuminate the light in these dark places. So when it bugs me, it's things that I've seen in the world, I have to go back and ask why. And then it's like, okay, well, it's because you don't stand for that. That's not your alignment. And so again, out of that, I think for me, it's another way that I kind of stay free in this is scripture talks about, we're not at war with other humans. This is, my paraphrase of it. You're not at war with your brother and sister. It's not this face and body. You're looking at I'm at war with you. There's a whole spiritual world of thoughts and ideas and things going on that's what we're at war with. Right. There's a vibration, these things that you're talking about, an antenna of creation and certain things that we can partner with. And so I see things as spirits and energies that sometimes, depending on where we're at here, you're aligned into fear and scarcity and take what you can, get where you can, or you're aligned into love, forgiveness, release, blessing. Let's champion, let's help, let's hope. But yeah, I would say, just knowing who I am again, knowing myself, continuing to align in something bigger, higher into God. And then that helps me to identify if something's just pissing me off because of the ego of Matt Lee, maybe somebody offended me. And I've realized that often it's not. Like if I'm getting mad or upset about on somebody else's behalf, somebody else's behalf, then I know for me that that's me wanting to step in as protector. That's me wanting to step in as provider.
Yeah.
That's me wanting to step in as, freedom, whatever it is. And so, but I think that's definitely a part. I mean, Jesus comes in and he sees that the temple is getting used for gambling and basically their own ego.
Yeah.
And so Jesus didn't come in because Jesus had an ego that said, you're not going to do this in my house. Now, Jesus came in and he said, you're not going to, you've turned this house of the Lord into this? That's not who I am. That's not how this is going to, exist right here. I'm here to change it up.
Yeah.
And so I feel that out of that example, I mean, there's going to be certain things that you want to come into the situation and maybe you have the right to go in and flip the table because this is unjust. This is not of God.
Yeah.
And so, anger, frustration, I think these are all parts that help us to show up and serve when innocence is getting taken, when people are getting belittled or mistreated. It's like,
well, and ultimately it's because how you're aligned with the divine, ultimately it's out of love. So like when you're using the examples that you gave, there's no love there. There's no protecting. It's just a complete absence of love. And that's the void you see that you want to fix or reshape or change.
right.
And I think that's because that's ultimately aligned. Do you think it's safe to say that because you're oriented towards love, that's why you feel so passionate about when you see those situations that you reference, like that's why you feel so.
Yeah, I think, I would definitely say that it's very much like a correlation between it because what you identify as is what you'll start to expect and stand for in life, right?
Exactly.
So if I identify as a loving person or a carrier of love, let's just say another way of saying that, like if I am a carrier of the light, then it makes it that much easier to see where darkness is at. It makes it that much easier to know that when I show up in these dark places, I'm coming with a purpose and an intention to light it up, right? And so again, I'll keep going back to that. But if the more you know you, the more you can grow you, right?
Yes.
And so even with what are the things that I actually stand for? This thing of love. I mean, there's really only two options in our world. It's love or fear. Everything's either an extension of love, right, or a projection of fear.
Yep.
Marianne Williamson talks about this, and I believe that because thoughts, emotions, actions, the reason why we do or don't do something every single moment of every single day is we're either in one of two channels. We're on the love channel or we're on the fear channel, right? And we're constantly there. So as you stay tuned into love and you stay tuned into this is who I am, right? Anything that is less than that thing that you're standing for, you can recognize it. And you can also start to see it as I play a role. I don't even know how, right? Like you in social media, it just works itself out to where you are the solution at the table and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
But you aligning into, when we talked about that story about you with social media management, like you knew the experience that you had, you knew the value of like the fundamentals, but you weren't convinced until you saw how much of a need you were or a solution to others, exactly. Right, in that moment. And I feel like sometimes like that's how we are. I mean, as caregivers, as teachers of Christ and love to the world, like the most important part is the being and doing of you, but somehow the being and doing of you and actually continuing to stay committed to that, it's always like the universe and God, that antenna is going to continue to put out. He's ready for more.
Right.
He's been tested up to this point, and that's why, like, I think you talked about earlier, we love the idea of like seeing the end. And honestly, we get to create the end in mind here.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to believe and trust and have the faith, right? But as we create that every single day, if we partner with our imagination in the vision of, I don't even know what tomorrow is going to look like. I don't know what 5 years from now is actually going to look like. But when I partner my will, my purpose of love and all these things to who do I choose to be, right? Again, creator, who am I deciding I want to be and what would that look like? And then carrying that way of being in it, dude, it starts to actually open up and create what David Baer talks about, you know, those coincidences and the synchronicities of, you know, you don't even know how that happened. You don't even know how that thing got offered. You don't even know how, you know, this thing popped up, but it did because that was the way of the universe working it out and bringing you when you were ready and you didn't even know, right? Because there's sometimes you're going to get opportunities or you're done on social media, but the universe and the world's like, you're not. You're just getting started.
Yep.
So the more you know yourself, the more you can grow yourself. And I think that's where we have to start. I mean, we really do. So
something I just want to mention, just because you talked about the imagination you have to cast that vision. Do you think a lot of people have a hard time with it because they forgot how to tap into their imagination?
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like imagination, like when you think imagination, you think of like a kid, you know, playing games and he's like, oh, I'm a construction worker today. And it's like that. Do you think it almost feels, some people feel like that's a childish thing? And like, so they're like, oh, no, that's not real.
Right.
This is what's real. This job is what's real. This, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and again, the world's thinking and way of thought is 180 compared to what is true and actually how we were created to. And so imagination, I mean, it's, and everything that we're talking about, it's just like a physical body and building muscle, you know, that is a very intentional thing. You don't ever see a fit guy or girl and wonder, how did they accidentally do that?
Right.
You would never cross your mind that they accidentally got swole. Like,
right.
It was very intentional. It was very on purpose. And so to see a body built or in some type of shape, you know, a healthy shape, then it gives you the evidence and tells you that was done on purpose, right? And so we have the same opportunity to build our mental musculature, and it comes through rep, and it comes through constant practice and awareness of building that, just like the constant awareness and building of a muscle actually expands and it breaks it down first, right? And then it builds it and makes it stronger. And our imagination and building that like musculature of mentally, it comes through rep, you know, because the reality is we lose our awareness and touch with our imagination, but we're still constantly imagining.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's easier to imagine fear. Well, what if this doesn't happen? Or what if I go in and they say that, or you're still imagining.
Yeah.
Because that's not actually real. Or you're imagining that, what if I end up broken in a year? You're still imagining, but it's a little bit harder to imagine on purpose with intention for something good. Because ego says, who are you to imagine good for you, right?
Yeah.
When all you've gotten was bad, or that's just how the world is. It's a negative place. It's a hard place. And so creating a relationship with your imagination that aligns into right thinking, right thought is something that has to be very intentional. And it's something that we have to, one, realize, I mean, our imagination is really, it's everything, you know, and out of our imagination, that's actually, I feel like, a very much more tangible way of partnering with promises, visions, maybe who your creator has called you and created you to be. And as we imagine something beyond, it actually takes us to that beyond. But when we imagine lack, when we imagine fear, when we imagine struggle is always going to be a part, again, you're putting out a vibration of that way of thinking, that way of being. So the world will always give you back what you are, right? So the power of imagination, I mean, Jesus talks so much about it. And this goes into why we create prayer, you know, and meditational time. It's to get us back into right thought and to get us back into the practice of healthy times with our meditation through imagining a hopeful future, imagining life getting better, imagining you getting better. And again, if you're not intentional about it, then the default, if you don't design your imagination, the default of your imagination will always replay the struggles, the stress, the worries from yesterday. And so we have to decide, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in default with my imagination, or am I going to continue to use that to help me design my way of thinking, my way of being?
Yeah, that's good. So like we use the reference of looking at your life like the cards you were dealt.
Mm-hmm.
But another visualization we could use is your life it consists of puzzle pieces, and the ultimate goal is to make the puzzle complete. So like, what advice would you give to someone who sees their puzzle pieces but doesn't know how to begin aligning them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of it would it's going to be when we talk about being one with yourself, when we talk about how it's hard to kind of set aside that time. I mean, I think the only way to really get into that clarity of how do these pieces fit is to, one, know that there has to be something within you that goes beyond just your own belief and understanding. Because like, if I have a puzzle piece and I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I just have these pieces, if I know it's still going to create something beautiful, I'm not so obsessed with where do these go. I'm more obsessed with knowing I have all these pieces. Right. And I think once you know what pieces you have, life, God, the divine will start to align those puzzle pieces. It's not our job to figure out the how, right? It's our job to figure out the why.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And why is this important for you to show up? Like, why is it important for you not to settle? Why is it important for you to put this out in the world? Why?
Yeah.
The how is not actually our job. And we as people get obsessed trying to figure out how. And we'll torment and we'll quit and we'll stop because we haven't figured out how.
Mm-hmm. That's faith.
Yeah, that's the faith, though. That's the whole gift. And again, the exchange of surrendering and giving to, this is who I choose to be. This is what I'm choosing to do. That's you having your puzzle pieces.
Right.
God is going to figure out and show you how to piece those together. Yeah. And so our job is not to know how to put that puzzle together. Our job is to know what pieces we have and how many pieces sometimes, right? Because in one season of life, you might have 3 pieces. You're like, I think this goes to a puzzle. I think this would fit into, and then fast forward 5 years, you might have, 10 pieces to this puzzle, things that you've worked through, things that you have, skill sets, yada, yada. And then the synchronicities, the coincidences of the divine and you allowing that to happen, it puts those pieces together. And it projects and paints and puts together this masterpiece that it wasn't from you. It wasn't your own doing. It was a co-partnership of what you were able to do because of what is in you and what you are tapped into.
That's so good. That's so good. So we talked about learning to look at the patterns in your life, the frustrations, and maybe learning to identify that that's part of your purpose or it's part of your design. It's calling you to something. Mm-hmm. So when you gain that awareness, now it becomes, how do you align it to what your purpose is? Because it's not just enough to recognize the clues. We have to own them and take charge of them.
Right.
So there's that moment when you have the clarity after you've done the searching, you've reflected, or you've discovered like, oh, this is a passion of mine. This is a piece of my puzzle. How do we move from that clarity to committing to, this is what I'm going to do now. This is who I am?
I would give you one word because that's the first one that comes to mind. So say that again. How do you get from this to this? Say that again.
How do you get from clarity to commitment?
Okay. And I would give you, it's another C word. And I think it comes back to courage.
Yeah.
You have to, you have clarity and this is what I should do. This is what I could do. And then to get to, you said commitment, right? To actually walking that thing out.
Yes.
It's usually courage. And courage is the act of still doing something, being scared, being afraid, right? And I think normally, I mean, like this podcast, for you to have the clarity of this is something I want to do, this is something that we need to be doing, to actually committing to it. There was somewhere in there to bridge that gap between clarity and commitment, that you had to have some active and some actual evidence of courage. Yeah. Because that's usually what it takes. Start a business. Ask a girl or a guy for their number. Take them on a date. One day buy a house. Get a car. Apply for that job. Clarity is always going to be there. The idea, I should do this. I need to do this. But to actually get on that path, there's some part in that process where you're going to be arguing and battling internally on why you should or why you shouldn't, or both. And then it's going to take you almost still being a little scared and you actually just go and make a commitment.
And I joked earlier about I wanted to delete the first 5 episodes, but the reality of the situation is I may not look at that as full courage, just because when we started this, it was, we're just going to record and then we're just going to drop the video unedited, no super raw, because it was like I was eliminating that barrier of like, because I'm still battling with like the perfectionism side, right? So it's like it's not going to be good enough. I didn't have the confidence that I could put my thoughts into articulate words. But looking back on it, like I am really grateful that Jordan Peterson talks about it as scaling your dragon to something you can contend with. Right. So for me, that I had to scale it down enough to where it was just record, put it, post it, record, post it. No intros, no. But by doing that, it increased by me having the evidence of, okay, now I know I can put it out there. Now I can level up and say, okay, now we're going to add intros. Now we can be more, now we can have guests, Right. So I think that's big too. Like, courageous doesn't mean you have to go slay the biggest dragon immediately. It's, are you even willing to just take that first step?
Right. Yeah. Right. Or, I mean, encourage, and a lot of it, dude, it's waking up the next day and giving yourself the permission, having the courage to go out and try again.
Honestly, like even today, like without Jeremy, like it's kind of tricky because, like I said, like he does the intros, right? And he's so good at articulating, and he's very good at saying everything very crisp. And like now that the pressure was on me, like, dude, I'll be honest, like I didn't sleep very good last night because it was like, I gotta, but here we are. You keep going,
That's right.
Am I comfortable? Not necessarily, but something that does help is having somebody that is willing to venture into that with you. You know, so I'm grateful for you being here and doing that. So, what would you say to somebody that has gone through the discovery phase and they know what they're drawn to, but they don't know like how to take the first step? Like, what would you encourage them with?
Well, I mean, that's a big part of the Allergic to Average, in a sense, like kind of the process that we like to help people to stay on track with. And I don't think it's just a one-time thing. So we normally talk about like for us to go from a state of discovery, what you're talking about. The next step we talk about is once you've discovered certain things, how do you empower that? Like, how do you actually build into that and lay some roots that get established? And then once you get there, a lot of people want to stop, but how do we then challenge ourselves to continue to discover more, or not to be stagnant with what we felt like we discovered and now we've built it? And then, so we always discover, then we go into empowering it, and then we go into challenge yourself to now give that to the world or give that to the next person, or challenge yourself to, okay, now that I've hit this level, what will it take to get to this level? Mm-hmm. And so I would say, so if you talked about if they've already discovered something, or maybe these puzzle pieces or a call, even if it's just one thing, or maybe it's a skill set that you know, like for me at 17, starting to do public speaking, you know, eventually I started to look at that, even though I didn't think I would be like a motivational speaker. I would start to see there's favor. There's a little bit of favor there. Like people asking me, and so there's a season where you start to empower and really, again, build into those things. Like there was a season, this was back in like 2014. This is before Allergic to Average, maybe 2013. And this is when I first started to get into mindset, the power of thought, you know, scripture, what it said, science, what it said, psychology, what does it say? Like all these things. And I was in discovery mode. But then I spent the next like probably year and a half like in empowerment mode, right? Like I'm really learning these things. And then eventually it came to the point where I felt like, because I was a product of learning how to think different, and I was going through discovering and then now empowering myself. Well, the challenge became, how do you take this message to the world of what you now know? And I was like, what? Right? And so wherever you're at, like I said, it constantly repeats. In the last 10 years of Allergic to Average and just that business, I mean, there's been new discoveries year by year. There's been new seasons of empowering. Let's build this product, social media. Let's, social gatherings, connections. And then it's always gone back to, how do we challenge other people to be this message for themselves, to be this? And, so that would be what I would say is like, how do you start finding ways to empower what you've discovered is a part of you?
Yeah.
And then once you get into building and getting more familiar and getting more confident, the universe is going to bring you opportunity that's going to allow you to be challenged with what you do with that purpose. Because that thing, and I say this about life in general, but that thing, that gift, that purpose that you're finding, you're attaching, it's for you, right? Just like life, it's for you, but it's not all about you. Right. And I think that's where we all get it's for you. What you're learning, it's for you, but it's so much bigger than just you. So the more you find out, the more you tap into, you're realizing that this is for you, but it's not all about you. Ego says it's all about you.
Right.
Ego says everything you're going through, everything you're learning, your puzzle pieces, how does this all serve me? At the end of the day, it will, but it serves you much better whenever it has service to others as well.
Do you think that that's a part of the process, though? Because I feel like for me, how old were you whenever you started getting into mindset?
I was probably 23.
Okay.
21? No. I was like, 22, 23.
Okay.
Maybe 23, 24.
Gotcha. It's a bit, but there's through my discovery process and diving into podcasts and diving into the word, and there was a season where it was about me because it was reshaping who I was.
Right.
But I think what happened there for a little bit was I don't know, help me on this, but I don't know if that was necessarily ego or if that was an essential part of the ego that I had to go through. But there had to be a point once I took in the knowledge and I had the conversations or I studied, and then applying it, but I still was carrying that mindset of it was still about me. Cause I think that's also an issue with always watching self-help stuff is there's a point to where you watch enough of it and you're always trying to fix yourself, but when is it enough? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so do you think that to sum that all up, do you think that there is an essential season of where your ego has to come in and say, you know what, I actually needed to step back and take some time for me? Is that still ego or is that?
Mm-mm. No, I wouldn't. Actually, ego says you don't need time for you. Ego says you're too busy to take time for you. You need to get this done, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's actually a higher invitation into love because it's like the principle of first. I talk about the world of you versus the world around you. And the world of you, and that's when you're taking these seasons where it really is about you. Because if you don't find clarity or mastery in that topic, in that season for you, the world won't ever get to experience it through you. So it is about you, right? In that moment. And so, I don't think that's actually a service of love to yourself, to peel back and to not feel the need, because ego wants to keep you busy. Ego wants to not slow down and show that there's an importance. It's actually saying you're wasting your time by what are you doing? Meditating? Like, what are you doing? That's what ego says. But for you to say, no, I need to actually like understand this for me. I need to actually like build some roots in this way of being and believing, because that's what's actually shaping the world of you and your now new beliefs, understandings, perspective. So you are then able to take that after that season of where it was for you. Then you get out of, okay, it's for me. It's for me. Now it's the season. God starts to show you, universe open up opportunities where, hey, that was for you, but now realize it's not all about you.
Yeah.
How are you going to help others? Because now that you got it for you, you can give it to others. Mm-hmm. But if we don't have, again, something for ourselves, we can't demonstrate that or give that to the world. And so,
well, so like that's something that we brought up in the past was, do you know who Jay Shetty is?
Mm-hmm.
So his definition of purpose is using your passions in the service of others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest part is, so like what I'm trying to communicate, like stepping out of that for me phase. Whenever I stepped out of that and it was like, okay, this is what I know about myself. I like video content. I'm acquainted with social media at the time, but I was looking at everybody else, like how they could, I was stuck in that it's me, like I need to take this time for me. But when I stepped out of that, I still had that mindset of it's me. So like, how are these people serving me? And so I had to like break out of that.
Right.
And like switch that around. It's like, okay, I took time for myself. I know how I operate. I know how I tick. How do I spin that and take care of other people? Use what I have.
Right.
And to serve others.
That's, yeah. And that, again, Matthew, I think 7, and this is literally the golden rule. And so much of that, speaking on purpose, is, you know, there's certain different, I mean, depending on what version you read, but you find this way to, and what scripture talks about is like, look at how you would want to be served and treated, right? I mean, the golden rule, we all know it, and take that invitation, take the initiative to go serve somebody else like that. Mm-hmm. Right. And so in general, I mean, like, that's a really like very simple, but not so easy way of being and living. Right.
Yeah.
A way of doing. And so I feel like so much of it is like, we're all connected as human beings. We're all children of God. We're all, you know, we got dogs and cats and animals and all the things, but we got human beings. Right. And there's a very special, incredible thing about human beings. And as I continue to realize that, you know, and again, the world's way of thinking completely different from God's way of thinking. We are more connected than we are apart. You know, ego constantly wants to detach us from each other. Separation is fear. Love is oneness. Right. So the more I say all that, because the more we do that on the individual level with ourselves, the world of us, the heart, the mind, thoughts, the feelings, the more ground I cover and I continue to build in me, that becomes the whole stance and approach that I go into this 3-dimensional world, right? David Barrett, a lot of these, they'll talk about the 4th dimension and how that's more real, right? So that's the imagination, that's spirituality, that's partnering with thought, and how that actually controls everything we see here, right? So getting into that permission for ourselves to be able to stop, see, feel, and then get into what does this look like? What does this feel like more and more as I build within self? That's what actually gives you the permission and ability to go out and build with others.
Yeah.
Problem is we want to do the opposite, right? It's like me looking at one point, I wanted to be the guy on the stage, you know, making $40,000, $50,000 off of a keynote.
Right.
But the first time I got $1,000 to speak and I had to deal with all that pressure in prep, it got me looking at the guy that makes that much and thinking, how much do you How much do you prepare? How much pressure are you taking on?
Right.
How do you feel when you have to get on the stage and you're getting paid that much and there's that many people? But
well, and I think that's because that's like that's why we titled our podcast Price of Purpose, because he's paying a price that you're not.
Right.
But that's his purpose. And I'm not saying that you're not going to get to that level, because I believe you will. But there is a price of that.
Yes.
There's a cost to that.
There is. Absolutely.
Because of course you want the $50,000 check and then the platform to do that, but we always forget about the other side of it, like what it costs them.
What it costs, to be on that like level of all that. I mean, it costs something, and I think, it is. It's easy, like I always talk about, there's two sides to a coin, and it's really easy to just like focus and get obsessed with just one side. And there's always that other side. I mean, I have a nephew who wants a car right now. He doesn't have a license, but he wants a car. I'm like, you do realize, well, if you get a car, you're paying gas, you're paying oil, tires, insurance, but no, you're just thinking of that one side of the coin. I have a car.
Yeah.
And so that one side of the coin, if I'm on the stage, man, I'm making that kind of money. But what does that mean about my lifestyle and every day when I get up, and like, what am I going to have to do so that I could be on that type of platform?
Time away from family. That's
right. Travel. It's a lot more pressure that sometimes we think we want, but we're not actually prepared for it. But going through the process prepares you for it. Right. It makes you, like you were talking about earlier, commitment or clarity to commitment. I was saying how that takes courage, right, to actually get on that path and commit. But I think out of doing that, one of the things that most people want in some shape or form is confidence. I think the only way to get confident is you found clarity, you had the courage to commit, and through that process, you're now confident in this area.
Yeah.
And without it, we have a lot of people that are very, they seem confident, they're selling you confidence, but they're not actually confident in what they're doing or what their product is. They're just trying to make money. They're just trying to
car salesman.
Yeah. So anyway, it plays back into that. So
that's good. So to wrap all this up, so we've gone through how to identify, how to discover, working through that. So now it comes to the action phase, because that's ultimately on you. You've taken the accountability. Now it's on you to act it out. So what's one small shift, again, because it doesn't have to be the biggest battle. It doesn't have to be the biggest dragon. What's one small shift somebody can make today to begin aligning their life with their purpose?
Yeah, I think for me, this goes actually to a quote. I think I need it as a tattoo, okay? And it don't have to be the whole quote, but it's just these two words. And we've been talking about one of them, but it's, regardless of where you're at, what life looks like, if your day feels like a success, a failure, I think the courage to continue. Have the courage to continue. I mean, seasons look different, right? Just like in the physical, when we look out, sometimes it's winter, sometimes it's summer, it's fall, it's spring. Sometimes you want to be outside, and sometimes you're like, oh, that's the last place I want to be. Whatever's going on with the weather, whatever needs to be done that day, we have to have the courage to continue to get it done, right? And I think for us in this overarching, look in life in us, there's going to be those ups and downs, those sacrifices, those great moments, those moments where it's just like, man, I really wish this would turn. I really, whatever it is, spouse, relationships, great seasons, bad seasons, whatever it looks like. But there's something about giving yourself the permission and having the courage to just keep going, man. Keep going.
Right.
Continue. And in a world where people some people can start, people love to start, but most people don't finish.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have the courage to continue, especially when there's those down seasons or moments in that, or things aren't going right, or a pandemic hits. How do I keep going? It's like, have the courage to just keep going and allow yourself to be open to ways. There's always a way, right? And the only way that it gets shut down or shut off to our awareness of it is we don't allow ourselves mentally to see other options. We get so like, it needs to be this way, or it needs to happen this way, or we're so fixated on how it's going to happen that we don't give God or the universe room to let it happen. So yeah, in general, the courage to continue can be on so many different levels, but I think the most important, and if it's somebody that's more on the starter path, is have the courage to continue to be one with yourself, to investigate, to have conversations, to learn more about you and what makes you tick and what makes you passionate, and have the courage to continue to stand for things like love, kindness. Have the courage to, again, sometimes it's wake up and go read that book. Like, it doesn't seem that. Have the courage to invest in yourself and have some quiet time. Just have the courage to, because at the end of the day, no one gives you the permission to. It's you making a decision and having the courage to say, if I do this, I'm expecting this on the other side. So let me make this investment. And the more that we do that, I feel like the more that we unfold to seeing who we were truly designed to be.
That's so good. Love it. Well, I mean, that wraps it up. So I just want to thank you, Matt, for your time.
Absolutely.
Where could people find you?
So personally, Matt _Lee, LE 54. And then Allergic to Average. We are Allergic, the number 2, AVG. That's our site. And then you can use that, or .com. That's our site. And then our handle on everything is Allergic number 2, AVG, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And
his merch is legit too. It fits good. It's not
yes.
not the Port Authority or whatever that
No,
garbage
it's
is.
not Gildan, it's not Hanes, it's not it's not your average gear. And so we got some new drops coming. We have different locations. So if you guys love the message, check out some of our content on social media, check out our online store, and reach out, message if you have any questions. So I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for the opportunity. And let's just keep growing, man.
Let's just keep doing it.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
That's it.